How to invest and how to save towards a wealth legacy. Hi, Eugene here, and welcome to the Wealth Effect. I'm going to take you through a couple of quick slides. I'm going to try and keep this nice and short and sweet, but giving you some hard-hitting information, which will hopefully be of assistance to you, as it has been to me. First thing I want to implore anyone to do is to take responsibility for your own financial well-being. Do not pass on the entire responsibility to third parties like your bank or your financial planner, etc. It's important to delegate some of the tasks to somebody you can trust or some institution you can trust that will assist you. But ultimately, you cannot pass the buck when it comes to the responsibility for your own financial future. So be consistent. Be consistent on a weekly basis. Do something that will build your wealth legacy, whether it is saving in a particular instrument, whether it is telling somebody else of the business you are in so you can build a team and start building a bigger passive cash flow. Because as we know, and as you would have seen on some of my previous videos, Warren Buffett once famously said that if you do not find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. If you haven't heard this before, then let that sink in for a second. And then never stop learning. Always educate yourself. You always have to keep up to date with what's happening in the world because dynamics are consistently changing, and do not pass on also this responsibility to anybody else. Remember, if a bank gives you information, gives you education, gives you certain inputs with regards to investment instruments, loans, and those kind of things, always remember what is the business of a bank. The business of a bank is to make money, primarily make money through lending out of currency to you, to anybody who wishes to make a loan for whatever purpose. That is the business they are in. So for banks, it would not be in their best interest if people do not require loans. So always take advice where it's coming from, take the good and sift it from the bad. So where do I save? Where do I invest in order to build wealth? I want to say up front here that this video is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. I'm not a registered financial planner. I'm just somebody who has gained some common sense and who has been educating myself over the last few years. I actually come from a background of chartered accountancy. I know numbers, I know how numbers work, and I have been educating myself. And this is the approach I'm taking. I'm not saying you should take this approach, but take from this what works for you. Always diversify. Always diversify. Never put all your eggs in one basket. Doesn't matter how big the promise, how clear cut the result or the return on this investment seems, and how big they say the capital growth will be. Always diversify. Have assets in different places, especially into uncorrelated assets. What do I mean by uncorrelated assets? Right? If we look at an asset such as gold or silver, these are not correlated to, let's say, the stock market. In other words, if the stock market takes a plunge because of some bad economic news, some profit warnings, trade wars going on, GDP result releases, inflation result releases, or whatever happens that brings down the stock markets, the ETF markets, the bond markets, etc., then you want to be in precious metals, for instance, because they are uncorrelated. Their movement do necessarily, 90% of the time, not follow suit with mainstream investment instruments that's based on paper. So you need to have uncorrelated assets so you are hedged on both sides. Why gold and silver? Number one, like I said, these are uncorrelated assets. They are also two of the 8 noble metals on the periodic table. They're not created by man. They cannot be created by man. They are limited in supply. And of all these noble metals or precious metals, gold is the most scarce, right? That's why gold is gold. It cannot be created by man. It cannot be supplied into infinity. It will always, therefore, be a perfect hedge against inflation and, again, an uncorrelated asset. Gold and silver cannot be corroded by oxygen. So gold and silver will continuously be in existence into infinity if they are not used in, for instance, industrial processes. And even then, you can still open up these items that gold and silver has been used in, and you can still extract these materials from them. Right, so the scarcity, the industrial use, jewelry, and the fact that they have stood for millennia as accepted mediums of exchange worldwide will always give value to gold and silver. Then we are looking at cryptocurrency. Why cryptocurrency? Right, so where gold and silver fall short of being a perfect medium of exchange is the portability. Right, yes, you can send gold digitally, but the physical asset you cannot send in a matter of minutes from anywhere in the world to anywhere else in the world. This is where cryptocurrency helps to be a perfect medium of exchange. The fact that cryptocurrency is not physical or not backed by anything physical is exactly why they are good assets. Also, most good cryptocurrency assets, cryptocurrencies, are limited in supply, and supply is controlled not by human intervention, not by governments, not by central banks, but supply is controlled by math that is built into the blockchain protocol. And because of the distributed nature of blockchain nodes, every node continuously checks the other to make sure nobody is doing anything strange or funny. So the technology behind cryptocurrency is what gives cryptocurrency its value and its use case. Again, uncorrelated assets. Cryptocurrencies are the perfect competition for government money. And as we all know, competition is always a good thing in the world. So that is why I am personally invested in cryptocurrency. What about stock investments, annuities, etc.? If these are instruments that you believe in, that you have an interest in, of course, by all means, do these investments. Now, if we look at investments, we want to see returns. We want to see what kind of returns will we earn on our investments. Now, if you invest in something or save in something like gold and silver and even cryptocurrency, except if you invest in a mining of cryptocurrencies, of course, but otherwise, if you just buy these instruments, you will not earn interest. But if you see them as a hedge against failing government currencies that's always lost value and it will continue to lose value, then the returns on them are not really that important. But when we invest in government money instruments, so when you invest in an instrument that you pay rands or dollars or yen or Thai baht or Swiss francs or whatever government currency in the world, if you invest in these instruments, you would want to see returns. Why? Because your currency continuously loses value and you need to be compensated for this loss in purchasing power because currencies keep being printed more and more and more in the world. They are not backed by anything of substantial value except for the faith that people have in governments and in national production. Now, this faith is diminishing rapidly. At present, as I make this video, the total amount of negative yielding government debt in the world, in other words, where people lend money to governments and they get back less in a few years from now, is already on 15 trillion. Right, that is ludicrous. It's not sustainable, and more people are waking up to the fact that government money has only been in existence really for 50 years since the gold standard has been, since the US dollar has been taken off the gold standard. Only for 50 years that we've been in this global monetary system. It does have an expiration date on it, and that is why you need to, firstly, when you invest in instruments like stock investments and annuities, you need to earn a proper return on these because your money is losing purchasing power. But that's why it's also important to my mind and why I invest in cryptocurrency and why I save in gold and silver. What about cash reserves? Right? Important thing to my mind about cash reserves is I want my cash reserves available at short notice. I don't want to fix a cash deposit, for instance, for 5 years, even though the interest on it looks very handsome. The truth is, we do not know where the economies are going to be in 5 years from now. If we enter into a period of hyperinflation, if currencies start to collapse, everything gets much, much more expensive, then your fixed deposit will not even be able to buy you perhaps a basket of goods at your grocery store. For argument's sake, the reality is there's uncertainty with regards to this. So fixing your cash reserve for too long, to my mind, is definitely not something that I would do. Of course, the other side of the spectrum, if markets start coming down, if the stock markets and property markets crash, we go into a period of deflation because money gets sucked out of the system, and you then have cash reserves that will serve you well. Because when is the best time to invest in a good asset? When it has crashed. When the value that you can pick it up, the price that you can pick it up for, is less than the actual inherent value of that asset. Right, that is the only reason for me having cash reserves, is of course also paying my monthly commitments, but secondly, having these available to make use of any opportunities that present themselves when markets come down and good assets are available at very cheap prices. Right, and then lastly, I also just want to add property. Of course, property will always in the long run be a good investment. Some property markets across the world have been taking strain. Some have been in a big bubble and still are. So at present, I am not 100% comfortable with regards to recommending property investments in specific markets, but it'll always be a good investment. Of course, there's a lot of pitfalls in property investment that one needs to be aware of. You have a lot of costs like maintenance, you have a lot of administration around these, and sometimes investing in a property fund, a trusted property fund that offers good returns could be a good option. And again, when markets crash, when property markets might fall like they've done after 2008, then is a good time to look into investing in property. Right, and then I just want to mention these couple of components very briefly: the importance of leveraging and the wonder of compounding. These two principles are so powerful. When we look at leveraging, that comes down to the sum of people, or sum of efforts of a number of people are just much better and much more powerful than the sum of efforts from one person. Like Jean-Paul Getty as well said, and I'm not quoting him word for word, but he was talking about rather having $1 worth of effort from 10,000 people than $10,000 from one person that you need to look very hard for. Right, so building a team, when you found a good opportunity, a good investment or savings opportunity, for instance, like the business, one of the businesses that I've been involved in for a number of years now, Carrot Bars, saving in gold on a monthly basis and teaching others to do the same, and being able to build cash flow streams by the efforts of other people. And the more people you help, the more your returns are and the more your rewards are. Because as I've said earlier, as Warren Buffett has said, if you do not find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. So leveraging, do not underestimate that. And when we look at network marketing businesses, for instance, many banks would tell you that these are pyramid schemes, etc. And a lot of people throw around these words. Reality is, number one, everything in the world runs on a pyramid. Corporate structures are typical examples of these. But secondly, remember what I said earlier. Take everything from where it is coming. People that are doing well in network marketing businesses through the principle of leveraging are not in need of bank loans and financing. And that is why it does not work well for the banking model, because fractional reserve lending is the lifeblood of commercial banks. So, in other words, having a proper business that you can make use of the principles of leveraging will help you to become free from debt, and it'll help you to build a strong financial legacy. While you are saving in proper instruments, you are also building cash flow streams. That's the power of leveraging. And then compounding. Simply put, the power of compounding returns is interest on interest, and that makes one's money grow. So look for opportunities where you can benefit from compounding. And let me show you this. It's just a brief example of compound interest. So this initial investment of 10,000 dollars at 10% interest rate. I've just found this one earlier today. It looks nice and everything. We're not going to analyze the sums, but I want to show to you what compound interest looks like. If my interest compounded daily, then my investment will be worth, according to this calculator, at $16,500 after 5 years. Now look at the gray area here. That's what I want to draw your attention to. Total interest. Remember, for the entire period, for this 5 years, the entire period, your interest rate is still the same, still on 10%, but look how interest grows. First year, 425. The second year, we're standing on 1,500. So you've now earned 1,100 interest as opposed to 425. See how it grows exponentially because you're earning interest on interest. If you take the average interest after 5 years of 6,500 Rand divided by 5, $6,500, my apologies, is about $1,300 a year. But look at the first year, it was only 425. If you would take out this interest and keep your total investment on 10,000, you would only earn $425 interest. But because you were able and willing to keep your investment in here, it grew at a much more rapid pace. And that is the power of compounding. So that is it from me for tonight. I hope this video didn't bore you. If you like it, please click the like button. Please click subscribe, and we will see you again soon at The Wealth Effect. Thank you for joining.